everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Sailor's Lounge, episode 9. Today we have a special guest, our sponsor, Opscentia. We are decentralizing the world for good. I think I should have Shady do the sponsor stuff since he's here with us today. But Opscentia is a project. You guys have been birthed from, I guess, the OceanDAO. Yeah.
Yeah. We incorporated before officially joining the DAO, but
Mm-hmm.
the gap in between when we set up as a company and when we joined the DAO is so small that I like to think that Opscentia was pretty much birthed from the DAO,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of really helped give us our set of traction that we needed to to start kind of developing and thinking about where we're going to go with science as a decentralized enterprise.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, okay, so I guess just give everybody who you are, and probably we'll have Alex also introduce herself too, and then we can go, I guess, a little behind like what Opscentia is about and why uh, we are sponsored by them.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks a lot for having me on. Very grateful to be able to spend some time chatting with both you and then Robin. I like to tune in every once in a while and just be a fly on the wall and hear what you guys are up to. And there's always something invigorating or thought-provoking that you guys talk about. So really grateful to be here right now. My name is Shadi. I'm a cognitive neuroscientist. I just recently finished my PhD last year in the depths of the corona pandemic. Such a trip. And during that process, for me, I was really fortunate because I'd completed a very long longitudinal neuroimaging study from where I was tracking adolescents from ages 11 into adulthood and estimating cognitive age, right? So this idea, though, that your chronological age doesn't necessarily reflect your biological age, and how does that inform your development and incorporation into society? So right around Corona, I finished my last set of data collection, and I was one of the lucky ones because there were other scientists who, after a certain period, just couldn't complete their studies, especially if they'd been doing multi-year studies. They had a huge missing gap in their data collection. And I think that really started getting me thinking in all sorts of capacities how the way that we do science today has different sets of limitations, right? So some people, it was still very difficult to bring them in for scans, but starting to think about, well, what if I just wanted to follow up with people with surveys or other forms of engagement with the participants and have like a seamless transition in science? And there was very little to do, that was available for us to do things like that. So started thinking more about science and decentralized science and digital spaces where we could perform science that's open, transparent, and abides by reproducibility standards for rigor. And then that kind of led me into a rabbit hole down Web3. Also, I'm part of the Brain Hack community, which is a decentralized community in its own right for solving problems in neuroscience, like pretty technical ones, whether it's hacking together a UI for a very niche scientific software, or coming up with new standards for a subsegment of the field, or proposing new standards for a subsegment of the field, or just educational events. Can we, just explain or bring science out to the rest of the world, specifically neuroscience, which is a very niche and can be very super technical field, in terms of whether it's mathematics or psychology or engineering. Everyone's a little expert in something that maybe not too many people know about, and sometimes it makes it difficult for scientists to communicate effectively. And so these hackathons provide this platform, this vista for people all over the world to engage and talk about problems in an open, non-competitive, non-adversarial way. So that kind of really inspired me as well, having been in and out of this community, participating in hackathons as I was doing my dissertation over the past couple of years, and specifically thinking about how folks like Cameron Craddock, who started the Brain Hack, he's a PhD has his lab at UT Austin, I believe. And so he set up the entire infrastructure for that. You can check out their website. And people like Satya Ghosh, who introduced me to IPFS way back in 2016, and thinking about the potential that we could have for science at large when we start thinking about breaking out of these institutional silos and pretty much like little playgrounds that are set up for us by the institution. Start thinking about what happens when we bring science at scale out in the world. So that, so it was Corona. I just defended. I was thinking to myself, I did a brain hack project on DeSci at the global. So actually, Opscentia is kind of a story of a hackathon to a startup, or a brain hack to a startup sort of story. And it was learned a lot in just a weekend, and realized that there was really something there. I think to a missing gap that needed to be filled. And then we launched Opscentia. Ocean Protocol was kind of on the mind at the time as I was preparing the materials for the hackathon last year. And so then I kind of stumbled into the OceanDAO and met all these beautiful, wonderful minds, really inspirational figures like Trent, Robin as well, Kai, and just so many Alex from Ocean Protocol, other Alex from Ocean Protocol as well. And just a really, really good solid crew. So Opscentia right now is kind of, it's been honing, right? Because we're learning more and more about what's available and accessible out here. The field of Web3 is moving so quickly, and the pace of innovation is actually insane. There's new protocols coming out constantly, new improvements being iterated. If you look at the Go IPFS repository on GitHub, it's insane how quickly they push out improvements and integrations. So and I'm really, really lucky too to be able to have this vision shared with others in the community as well. And fortuitous events have led me to meeting Alex through Sarah, who's another PhD in cognitive neuroimaging, and we both kind of have this shared view of science and how there's a whole host of technological innovations that could take us from out of the old world, which institutions are clinging to so desperately for fear of breaking things or for fear of disrupting the hierarchy or the status quo. So she introduced me to Alex, who's a very talented full stack developer. All thanks to you and Kinshuk and Achi, I would say, for our recent finalist placing in the ETH Global Hackathon a couple weekends ago.
Yeah, that was good fun. It was really fun, actually, that hackathon. But I think it's definitely through it was actually very serendipitous meeting Shady, because it was through Sarah. So Sarah is, as you mentioned, so she's one of my closest friends, and we actually met working in finance, in tech, in London, and just became really close, both really interested by Web3, really interested by all the things that decentralized ledger technologies, all the different, how it gives you personal autonomy. She just posted on a neurotech forum, and Shady answered the call for blockchain plus neuroscience. So, and then here we are doing kernel block 3 together as a team and doing hackathons together, and on the podcast.
Is this the Sarah from Ocean or a different Sarah?
Different Sarah.
Okay. Okay, cool. And wait, so Shady, when did you first join your first town hall, Ocean Town Hall? I think it was last year, wasn't it?
No, it was number 2. Number 2 is my first one.
Number 2, the second town hall?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think that was my
I think you presented at that one.
Yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say. I think that was my first time presenting.
And we talked about Gaia.
Gaia and everything like that.
Yeah, about the game. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it was my first. Yeah, it was my first iteration of Build Ocean, I guess. Yeah. But anyways. Yeah.
Anyway. I still remember that everybody was captivated because neuroscience entered Ocean Ocean protocol, you know, like OceanDAO, and like nobody was really expecting this to happen. And then, you know, I think in the first round it didn't go so well, but after that, you know, Shadi started to show up again and again and explain the things, and everybody was like, okay, I think he knows what he's talking about, and yeah, okay. And then the votes started pouring in, and then yeah, the grants started coming. So yeah, I think you also won one today, right? So yeah, looks good.
I haven't checked the final results yet because I was kind of in a hurry to get to the WeWork to hop on, but that's really great news. Thank you.
I think you made it. Yes, I mean the results are not official yet, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, because I know that there was a little bit of where it's the grant has to be exhausted in primacy, like, you know, so first position gets first dibs, and then until I did.
But I think it was not oversubscribed too much this round. So I mean, of course I did immediately after the proposals were closed. I went and did all the math, you know, to calculate how many people would get something and where you have to position. I'm just like, you know, I basically I'm kind of doing those just to get the company, keep the company running, you know, like the project. I'm not sure how this is for you guys if you have larger reserve pockets or something, but for me this is always very important to get there, you know, like every month. So my last night is always a little bit difficult with sleeping anyways, like because of this, but okay, I hope this will also change over time, you know.
Yeah, no, it's my first town hall actually was the same day I'd had an interview at Kernel, which is kind of a company that in some ways, you know, we're working in the same field as Opscentia, right? We're looking at ways where we could liberate scientific data and have crowdsourced neuroscientific data commons. And so Kernel is a company that's building portable MEGs using things called optically pumped MEG. And MEG is a very expensive and difficult technology to use for imaging the brain. It's kind of cool. It works with aligning dipoles, electrical dipoles in the neurons in your brain so that when an action potential occurs, you can actually see the summation of local field potential using, you know, crazy magnets. It's kind of insane how it works. And they found a way to miniaturize the MEG and be able to, you know, really truly offer a business model for neuroscience as a service where, you know, you could collect massive amounts of neuroimaging data from consumers at scale all around the world, say like around a particular event or for a particular disease and so on and so forth. And yeah, so like I remember I interviewed with the company and it was just completely different when you enter into a Silicon Valley engineered startup and the sort of, I think like a little bit of CEO worship or hero worship that was present, where the founder was this guy, Brian Johnson, who didn't have a background as a neuroscientist, but was putting all of these like really talented individuals together, and they're all kind of, you know, scurrying to and fro to build as fast as they can this project that's going to satisfy some business models parameters. And so, you know, I'm just looking at this and I'm seeing kind of all of the, like the culture and also the way that certain principles that we hold in science, like really kind of thinking about the participant, their self-sovereignty and the consequences of our research as a first principles before we even think about developing stuff or doing experiments. And so, yeah, I just realized that wasn't for me. I was like, okay, I will probably, you know, find a different salary somewhere. And so Ocean came in, and, you know, lucky for me, I saved a little bit during the coronavirus, stopped drinking all the beer that I usually drink.
Right.
The smart savings, yeah, smart savings, yeah.
As a grad student, right?
So how did you know about Ocean? I think you said you stumbled upon like the DAO or like thought about Ocean Protocol. Was this, did you already know about it like before?
Yeah, I think so. For me, for a while, GitHub was kind of like my Twitter feed, right? You know, when I was trying to really keep up with all the projects and see what was interesting on there, I'd log out, like, oh, this is so cool. What's up today? And I was searching for some software dependency for like tokenizing data or thinking about automated market makers for data. And that led me to the Ocean market. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot of development activity happening here. Holy crap, how long has this been around? and then get to the website. Then I go down the rabbit hole, Trent and Bruce's podcasts, their articles. Yeah, I really appreciate the time and effort they put into this, establishing a thought leadership in this field, which is not too many people have thought about or even considered. It's completely brand new, and there's so many concepts that, you know, I'm still struggling to get my head around. Property, and Trent just released a bunch of, you know, really, really great articles. Haven't read them yet on those. Just kind of really quickly browse. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got into Ocean, and immediately saw the value proposition for it. And at the same time, too, for the hackathon that we did in 2020, that's when it kind of came up on the radar when we were doing the prep work for it. So yeah, I wanted to really also quickly just say too, so the grants that we've been getting from Ocean, we are working to put out like a full transparent budget of how, you know, everything's been working. We've thankfully, I've been able to hold a treasury reserve for most of that. And I've been expending from my own personal account, supporting the business, growing it. We've funded our Kernel Block 3 fellowship for a team of 7, including myself. And so that's been really, really great. We've also been able to create an open web science fellowship for talented undergraduates. And this was done directly in response to the Google Summer of Code, which had cut their slots in half for the year because of budgeting, which is kind of hilarious because Google has like huge, you know, revenue. But so they cut their slots. And so we wanted to make sure that everyone who submitted quality proposals had an opportunity to participate. So we're able to create that funded position, and been able to support freelancers to help us work on our brand construction and our brand image. And the goal is to use a lot of that capital to seed the first science data DAO, right? And so thinking about how could we, you know, seed our, you know, first pools, because the neuroimaging data set is pretty expensive. And so making sure that we can seed those data certain pools, and providing a DAO with some initial juice, some fuel in the engine to get going, and start collectively working to build out an organization. And so that kind of takes me into, I did want to mention too, kind of describe a little bit of what Opscentia is philosophically and what purpose it serves. So Opscentia is, it's a team of stewards, right? It's a caretakers that exist to nurture the growth of the DAO, right? So in the very beginning, when all you have is a couple people on the internet, they're forming a community, and you know, a DAO doesn't exist without community. So Opscentia brings together people with aligned visions. We're completely flat, decentralized. So there's no executive positions or officer positions. Everyone just brings their unique skill set, and that's the, you know, I guess that's the barrier for joining, is how self-motivated you are, what unique skill sets you possess, and do you share a vision of a decentralized, equitable science commons. And yeah, we really are super proud of the diversity that we've brought in so far for our teams and people all over the world. And yeah, and so our long-term vision is over this next year, we're going to be building out just the really basic core components for building out a DeSci DAO and making that as a template that other people could fork and replicate, modify for their own purposes. And yeah, so these would be things like, you know, code templates for publishing research science data bounties that's based off of the fair, reproducible workflow, right? Findable, accessible, interoperable, and repeatable. This would include governance tools, examples of governance, and yeah, so, and then other sort of applications, specifically like use cases showing how you can deploy interoperable data sets and models on Ocean Protocol for compute to data, how you can really abide by these principles of data self-sovereignty in science and not give yourself a headache while, you know, so we worry about building out the infrastructure so that scientists can come in and do the research that they need to do without having to hire a full-time developer or things of that sort. So yeah, so I guess, yeah, Opscentia is just this, you know, collective of gardeners and caretakers that are trying to nurture and grow this DAO. over time. And our, so our 1 year is we hope that we can have some base ground for people to build off of. And in 10 years, the goal would be that we have these automated science foundries where anyone in the world can pre-register a hypothesis. They can say, I, believe, or, my hypothesis is that the nth codon in the coronavirus version 5, who knows by then, is, is I don't know, like, that this protein binds to it. And they can post that hypothesis, and somebody else can see that hypothesis in the world and have access, whether it's a wet lab co-working space or they have access to a laboratory, could test that hypothesis, post that data on that platform, and anybody else can claim that data and then continue the analysis or continue the writing up of those results. So in this case, a research project or a research paper is a living object. It's not a single solitary object that one person's in charge of, making up on their own and then maybe deciding to share it with other people, because academia is a pretty solitary pursuit in a lot of ways. And yeah, so the idea would be that we could automate a lot of these components of scientific enterprise, especially some low-hanging fruit, and to leave the more difficult parts of science, which shouldn't be data collection. It shouldn't be making sure that data pipelines are interoperable. It shouldn't be having the control for library differences and different types of software to make sure that doesn't confound the results. What the most difficult parts of science should be answering questions about the universe and the composition of the universe, and how can we make life better for humans on this planet. So yeah, so that's our vision. That's where we're gonna go. I'm not gonna say hope to go. That's where we're gonna go. And, yeah.
Did you want to say something, Robin?
No, Alex. It's Alex.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think this is why so many people already are behind Shady and his idea. I think it's sort of filling this gap. And talking to, so actually my background is a software engineer, data engineer. But talking to Sarah and talking to other PhD, people have left academia and gone into the corporate world. A lot of the reason they leave is because of the issues that academia has, because of the siloed nature of academia and how the incentive structures that exist in academia are wrong, and they hinder rather than help things like open science. So I think it's a really, really awesome idea, and definitely something that even outside of academia I can see is an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I also remember my time at the university when I was working in a lab, in the robotics lab, and I was sitting in a room with like 2 guys doing their PhD. We were sharing the office, and I mean, the only thing that they were doing is like writing some papers and then trying month for month to go to the conferences and try to convince, the people that these papers are good. Despite them spending a lot of time and effort to make the empirical research, like to come up with their theories. But then there was always like this and that detail that they didn't like in this conference. Then they were waiting for the next one that was up to their standards to publish again and then try again and again. And I spent I think I worked 5 years in the robotics lab. And one guy managed to do the PhD, the other one was still on it. So at the end, and I was like, and they were offering me the same path, do you want to go down this path? And I was like, guys, come on, my life is too short for this. I went into the industry, and I'm not really looking back, so it's just like, yeah, okay, you can do that. I mean, it takes a lot of rigor, you have to be really a strong person to take all of this, I think, nonsense. I mean, I tried also to publish my paper 2 times. It was declined because this result looks too good. It can't be true. And I was like, I mean, okay, if this is a problem, then yeah, okay, let's try to just take the good results and do some engineering or something. It's okay.
Yeah, I have to remind myself every time not to take it personally. I just had a paper that was recently I guess you could say desk rejected because they couldn't find enough reviewers. And yeah, I took it pretty hard. I was like, man, this is the greatest paper of all time. What are you people doing? And of course, because it's your baby. But recently I found out that Fauci and Francis Collins. So Francis Collins is the acting head of NIH. I think he still is. He was appointed under Obama. I don't think he was ever replaced by Trump. And Francis, Anthony Fauci, right? We all know Fauci. Their paper last April on the COVID vaccine was desk rejected by nature. So it happens to everyone. It happens to the most famous and the unfamous and the infamous. It happens to all of them.
Yeah, but I think it's really a good idea to try to, you know, to make all of this a little bit less the main point, you know, that you like taking out all of these processes, you know, and the things that really take a lot of the time, that those are not in focus anymore. And I mean, I think you guys are not alone on this road. I mean, I saw a video recently of DAO, and DAO is like, they also say, okay, I mean, it doesn't have to always stay like this, you know, science can also evolve, you know, it does not have to be like this forever, you know, like there's no reason, you know, like, I mean, science is always doing science, but like science about science and how to, you know, change this. I think there you guys are also on the forefront of what's going to come. And you said it earlier about how fast things move in Web3. I mean, like there's like the people who are talking about a singularity event, and I think like Web3 is kind of one important component that is kind of leading us there to this point, because like it's now more about collaboration than about competition. It's more about making things and then sharing it with other people, and then suddenly, you know, 1 month feels like 1 year or something like this. And you really, if you're gone for 1 month, you don't even know what happened. I mean, it's too difficult to catch up and so on. So I think that's the acceleration. I mean, the like this, exponential acceleration that everybody's talking about. I feel like this is in this space, it's happening. I mean, in the normal industry, it still stays the same, but in Web3, it's kind of, it's a feeling. Somehow,
It's I think right now, science is suffering from a tragedy of success, right? So we've reached a point in the history of civilization where more knowledge is being created per second than has ever been possible, right? So if you just think about all of the science labs around the world, or just the sensors that are everywhere collecting atmospheric data, or cell phones, you know, you can continue the metaphor. And, you know, we're, as scientists or knowledge seekers, we're all operating in these silos because that's how we're trained to do, right? You need to demonstrate your mettle as an intellectual or as a thinker. You know, you're groomed to perform in this solo competitive sport. That's you know intellectual gymnastics or scholarly gymnastics, and you're working in that in that silo. And then all around you in the world are people working either on something similar or something that you could use to improve your result in real time. But because all those doors are closed, because you're highly discouraged from giving out your ideas, I can't tell you how one of the most common fears in at least in neuroscience, I'm sure, and just in science in general and in other fields, you know, the most, because I've mentored other younger students that came through the program, and one of the most common questions is, you know, what do I do if I get scooped? What if someone takes my idea and publishes your idea? Like, well, were you done after you know, did you see that you finished after you completed that project? It's like, well, then they did the easy part for you. Now you can do the next hard part. But it's, you know, it's difficult to really, you know, to have this conception that, you know, at any time someone can, you know, scoop me or sweep, you know, rug pull me basically. And that's because I think we work in closed off environments. And so, yeah, I think the only really way out of this situation that we've put ourselves in, it's kind of like, you know, if there was one major threat to the future of science, it's going to be human coordination failure, where we have everything that we need at our disposal to solve these problems, make science more efficient, to increase the amount of knowledge generated per GDP invested, right? And that's why the Ethereum Foundation and the community and the culture really kind of resonated with me and stuck out to me very early on. And, you know, as I was researching this kind of concept, where we can start thinking about engineering communities through financial and other, you know, imaginary points, internet points, incentives, and start gamifying different components of collaboration where we can promote both adversarial interactions and collaboration in mutually beneficial ways. So yeah, and then, you know, thinking about people like Tim Berners-Lee, and thinking about things like the semantic web and how you have all of this unstructured data out there, and people are constantly trying to come up with ways. And now data union is a huge, this is something that you guys are super focused on, is how do we, begin to organize and collect in large amounts the data and all the knowledge that's out there on the internet. You guys are focused more on human intelligence. But yeah, so that's kind of what we're trying to, really hammer out here, or at least start building some basic tools that let people, first off, work out in the open and feel comfortable doing so. And along the same vein, having access to rigorous and highly vetted and high quality models and data sets that are used by the community. And so when you do reproduce a scientific experiment, you know that 10 other people have also used that data set and gotten similar results, and you can feel more comfortable about the result or extending it to a whole new question. So I think that the benefits of of having universal data standards, decentralized identifiers to maintain reputation, contribution, ownership, intellectual ownership, things like DAOs and distributed governance. There's a lot of really interesting experiments waiting to be done there. And yeah, and then of course DeFi. DeFi is what's powering this next wave of innovation on the internet, where for the very first time, money is open source. You can program money now, and that leaves the question open: what can we program money for? What if we program money to increase the rate of knowledge generation? What if we program money to make the future happen the way that we see it in all of its best characteristics and qualities and hopeful instantiations? And what if we start doing that now, because we have all those tools? So yeah, just every single day I open up my phone or a web browser or listen to something on this topic, and it's just a constant stream of wow, this is happening so fast, it's immediate, there's so much that's going to change. Yeah.
I guess to add to that, it's not even theoretical, because I think what we saw with COVID is if the incentives are correct, you can achieve vaccine, a to-market vaccine in a year, which was it a year or a little bit more than a year? Which is
less. It was less.
In history. It's no, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, it was it's going to take about 3 years to get a vaccine, and it's going to take this and that. But the incentives were aligned for everyone in that system to get this vaccine out and get it out now. And that's really exciting. So what's off that's not happening at that rate in other aspects of, are we not finding cures for Alzheimer's or cures for cancer or whatever it is? And that is not to say at all that scientists are not working the hardest they can, because they obviously are. But it's as we see with academia, it's very siloed. So if we could share, if we are incentivized to share this data and not get scooped. If scooped was actually a positive thing, as you said, Shady, if somebody scoops you, then you can go and do the next hardest thing. How can we change it so that, it's a positive, not a negative? Yeah.
I think, also a point of failure for science also too, right? Besides being scooped up or being I guess there's also a bias, right? I mean, there's also, because I also think too, if people, I mean, there are scientists out there too that also kind of go against the grain, right? And they so if one scientist says this thing about this, but then the whole institution of academia is saying oh no, that's wrong, but but most, I guess, but I guess with science, science should be open, right? And we should say okay, well, we should kind of consider their thought, because I always think that too, where there's scientists out there that do kind of go against the grain, and maybe they are right, but because we're in these institutional silos, it's you can't really go against the grain of what what academia thinks is correct, right?
I mean, you can do it, but then you will not get any funding.
Exactly.
It's also on the other side, you have this battle, for the funding, right? So where is the money coming from? I mean, okay, some institutions, some governments, or some companies, but they also have their own opinion, where they want to go. But as you said, Shadi, now there's the world of programmable money, of making an incentives from zero. So if you make a DAO, you can then say, okay, now we make a governance token, we make a token, we make a Genesis event. Like, who's interested in joining us? Who wants to have a say? Who wants to also support us, either with their time, with their knowledge, or with their connections or their money? And then you bring everybody together who's interested, and then something new can be created, and the people directly who have the money can come in and go into this. They don't have to go and invest into some company indirectly via their shares, and then if everything goes well, then they might get something out of it. No, they have a direct say, and I think that's also something that will bring this acceleration that we kind of are all looking for.
Is it? Oh, well, I was just gonna say that I guess, with this movement, this will probably bring science back to the people rather than large government institute. Because when you talked about Fauci, and then I guess now the whole Fauci emails are coming up, and I guess one article that I saw was that the Pentagon, the Pentagon spent $35 million on this charity for I forgot what was the charity, but it was an organization that was under the Wuhan lab that was researching gain of function research, which most of this stuff is supposed to be banned, right? But I guess with these now new incentives, we can move towards science being for the people, and then the people can say, hey, let's not fund this bioweapons, or let's not fund nuclear weapons, or things like that. Because I know Shadi, you were talking about in I guess in the last town hall, or was it the other town hall, where you were talking about if you can block someone from using your data set to use it for weapons or things like that.
Yeah. So I think that's really interesting. I have been following really closely the investigations and the story behind what really happened with the Wuhan Virology Institute, and so I don't believe that gain of function experiments are necessarily illegal. I think in some cases they are necessary for developing therapeutics, but then there's also that really fuzzy border between engineering new weapons, right? Because life can be a weapon. It's used that way. And yeah, I mean, so I have been following that really closely, and in many cases, the people that would best be able to make that distinction would be the experts, right? So there's only a certain set of people who know enough about these topics to make those decisions over whether, those informed decisions over whether it's truly a dangerous pursuit or not. I think the disconnect occurs, though, and what you mentioned earlier, Robin, about funding kind of really resonated with me. So right now we have this distributed consensus mechanism for figuring out what research to fund and what research is okay and isn't okay by societal standards. And usually in the United States, it looks like this. You have some set of lawmakers that are sitting on a committee for making the budgets for science. And then you have some special interest groups in society, like the Alzheimer's, people that are interested in Alzheimer's research, or families of people that are impacted by different types of diseases. And they raise money and send representatives to the lobby of the Congress, and then they try to catch their aides of the different people that sit on the budgets, and try to get some time to speak with them, so that when they debate the budgets, they decide to bring up topics and budget line items that would directly, that would mean something to their constituents. And so they bring up those budgets, and then it's complicated, right? So finally the budget gets passed, NIH is going to get X, million of dollars. And then those budgets go to a relatively, it's a decentralized, I would say, network of reviewers, but it's usually the same people over and over and over again. And so they get paid, like a bunch of PhDs all over the country, sometimes across the world, get paid up, sit in a hotel somewhere, and they all kind of converge on these applications, and they have like a rhythm that they go through, right? I've never sat on one of these committees before, but I have done some mock sessions as part of my training. And it's really interesting how there's, you know, these score sheets, and, you know, you have a whole pile of things to get through. And some of these proposals are incredibly detailed and complex, and each one of them is going to make your, you know, brain overheat, you know, thinking so much about all the applications, not only the ethical consequences or the, you know, perhaps other consequences of the research beyond just did the hypothesis work or not, or is this, you know, an impact, you know, study that's worth something. And yeah, I think the major disconnect there, though, is, you know, so these scientists are in this, you know, small group with this kind of cultural groupthink that over time is really refined. And, you know, of course, you're challenged to try to remain as impartial as possible. And you end up just slamming through these grants and scoring them based off of these, you know, habits that you've converged on as a group. But at the same time, there's maybe other components of that research that isn't available to the general public. And this is where I think, you know, that biggest disconnect is, which is how do you engage the rest of society with these really highly technical questions, right? So I think the burden does fall on the institutions that perform scientific research and support scientific research are not allocating enough buffer or that middle ground between the highly specialized research and the communications of that research to the rest of society. Often we rely on, like, you know, mainstream news outlets to do it, and journalists aren't scientists either. And that's because all the scientists are going down a very narrow path for becoming a PI with tenure at a university. And the average age right now for getting tenure in the United States is around 50 years. It's almost the same as getting your first R01 grant, which is, if you get an R01 grant in the US, you made it. You know, that's the end of your career. You're a scientist now, officially. You're recognized, I guess. And yeah, and so what ends up happening along the way is you have all of this spillover, all of this talent spillover that's happening, and people fall into different careers. They go into industry, maybe some of them start businesses. And I think what's missing is some sense of community or some sense of gravitational attraction between all of this talent that's out there, and plugging that in directly with you know, the rest of society. And so one way we could do that, like you said, Jim, is where we make, you know, where research participants, at least in human subjects research, right? It's different when you're experimenting on bacteria or viruses, but for at least human subjects research, you can make the research participant feel like a stakeholder, right? Where they can see what data, like just like if you had a universal vault, like an NFT, that was a representation of all of the data pools that your data set belonged in. And, you know, maybe perhaps in some scheme, it's accumulating fees from the use of that data in different types of research projects or analyses. So maybe it has that sort of value, but it also has the additional value of a feeling of involvement or engagement, or that you're directly invested in knowledge. And maybe that would inspire you to learn more about what you're doing, or learn more about science, and to be more engaged and have more of a voice. So yeah, so, like, you know, everyone's kind of worried about gain of function and virology research, and, you know, but where was all of that interest, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ago? So I think the onus falls on scientists and the community that supports scientists, you know, the immediate technical community, to think about ways how we could meaningfully and responsibly engage research participants and the general public in thinking about what the consequences of science are, and really like, you know, so we glamorize in society many things, but science is one of the very few things, until a pandemic hit, and we're like, wait, the scientists are actually really important. So how do we create that community and that sense of presence of science in everyday people's lives? I think that's something, you know, we're thinking about almost every day at Opscentia.
Yeah, that's definitely. I think we should talk about your DeSci stack. Just leaning, I guess, flowing into this, and then how you will, I guess, make this into like a fruition, you know. I guess what you guys are talking about. I think I've been through. I know Robin has been through the DeSci repository also. Um, yeah, so your DeSci stack has like storage, you know, data permissions, confidential and federated cloud computing, and then data marketplaces, and then plus also transparency and governance. I guess if you want to take us through. And I think you guys just also came out with a data wallet. So I guess we'll just talk about that. I think we'll talk more towards then, but yeah, let's just go through your DeSci stack.
Yeah. I'll give a really, really quick overview. And Alex, if you want to hop in at any point, or if you want to take any of these topics in more detail.
I can talk about the data wallet. You can do the DeSci stack.
All right, cool. So I'll do a really quick one on the DeSci stack. And yeah, I'd be really, really stoked if Alex could show us some of the data law stuff, which I think
I don't have it. You need to share my screen. I don't have it ready, but let me cheat. Watch our demo.
All right, no pressure there. All right, cool. Yeah. So yeah, the DeSci stack, our repository is on GitHub. If you're listening to this somewhere on the interwebs, and you want to learn more, just feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or hop into our Discord group. You can find us. Just search Opscentia. And yeah, so our DeSci stack repository is meant to be this template that other people could fork and use to build their own research labs in the cloud, right? So this has the vision is that this repository would have all of the things that you would need to pre-register a hypothesis, deploy data bounties for a particular research project, say, for example, like everyone who has an Apple Watch that can upload regular EKG data during the global pandemic to monitor anxiety and answer a personality survey. And, you could crowdsource payment there, directly going around, getting around some of the issues with doing payment. There are, other considerations as well, like how do we maintain, for example, when you do science in traditional sense in the lab, you have to get IRB approval and all of these steps leading up to that. So the goal here, though, is to just provide this kind of what Thomas Kuhn calls, right, the philosopher of science, this normal science infrastructure. So all of the tools that we would need to do everyday science. And yeah, so it's broken down. Thanks, Jim, for kind of taking us through the main components. It's broken down into storage, identity management, cloud computing, and specifically confidential cloud computing. And I think the most important thing tying all of this together is data marketplaces for profit sharing. So this is where we start thinking about how do we use open source money to bootstrap and create sustainable business models for science. And all of this is not possible unless there's transparency and equitable, accessible governance in these communities, right? Like you can't have a decentralized science community that runs governed by whales, right? That would never work because then that's just the same system again. So when we think about the DeSci stack, probably the most important component, I would say, is peer-to-peer storage of data, because right now data is stored on institutional silos, and actually institutions don't know what to do with the data. I worked as pretty much, I was the only grad student in a neuroimaging lab at Georgetown University here in DC, and I can't tell you how many times, because I'm the only grad student in the lab, I'm the go-to for answering all problems that come up, in the center. And I can't tell you how many times I've had to answer questions about, how do I get my data from this place to this place, or how do I get it converted, or how do I know that, I didn't lose any files, and so, like just the fact, just the problems of getting really large neuroimaging data sets that for each individual are going to be 20, 50, 100 gigabytes, depending on the resolution. And if you have a study of 100 or 200 or 500 people, it becomes a huge problem. So, I think one thing that we really want to explore and establish some standards for, and I think this would really nicely play with some existing initiatives with the Obama Brain Initiative, for example, which is this human genome project-esque, where they're mapping the entire human brain's connections in multiple species to try to understand what's the etiology of different types of diseases, the normal development span of the brain. Can we, start developing treatments if we have this map? But these data sets are massive. And there's one group specifically at MIT that's building out the Decentralized Archive for Neuroimaging Data, or DANDY for short. And right now they're trying to figure out, how do we deal with petabyte-sized data? We can't move it. We can't do much with it, and we can only read it in small chunks at a time. And most of the time we have to read it into memory. And so you need these like super expensive machines that that can let you do such things, that use such data. So one of the solutions they're looking at is IPFS, but it's such a new field and such a new technology that it's not quite clear what direction to go in. And as part of the DeSci stack, it's really important for us to be able to, as a decentralized science community, to be able to store really large data sets and like have a command for on-demand wide bandwidth, which is something that IPFS makes possible that perhaps Google Cloud can't, for upload and download. The ability to create your own private networks for consortia of research institutions that might be, interested in permanently storing scientific data, but maybe it has some sort of sensitive aspects. And so being able to store the raw data and have that in perpetuity and safety, knowing that that data is going to be part of the heritage of our common heritage over time, and then perhaps making the derivatives of that data set public. And I think one really key thing that we really haven't touched on is fighting censorship, right, and promoting open data. So we live in a world, sadly, where political motivations often trump or often supersede our own common good, right? The things that we should actually be doing, and having things that are objectively, independent of opinions. Data doesn't have, well, you could say that you can collect data with a bias, but the human brain is what comes to inference on data. And so, having data out there should be no sort of throttle on measurements of the universe. That should be made accessible for everyone. And so when you have all these things together, you can start thinking of building storage on IPFS and different variations of IPFS, like Textile or Fleek, and thinking about them as building blocks for decentralized apps, where you have this data self-sovereignty baked in, because this data lives on IPFS. It doesn't live in any one country, right? So for example, the United States has, in 2018, passed the Cloud Act, which is a huge deal. And it kind of flew under the radar because it meant that if you store your data if you're in Europe, or if you're in Malaysia or Singapore, wherever you are, and you store your data on US servers, that data is subject to your US jurisdiction. And guess what? The US doesn't have comprehensive privacy law restrictions or regulations. So, it's very well might be the case that you're storing some very sensitive, intimate data about your body, about yourself, about your identity, and that's being used to drive profits for other companies or generate insights for other actors that you might not morally or ethically agree with. So with decentralized storage, you have more power now, because you can't say it lives in the United States. You can't say it lives in one particular country. It's in a decentralized network. And the more that people fork and use the data, the more distributed it becomes and the more resilient the network becomes. And yeah, so I don't know if you guys want to chime in or anything.
Yeah, go on, Jim.
Okay, well, I was just gonna ask, like, have you guys seen? Well, you guys are using IPFS right now, or have you looked into like other storages? And what do you guys think about, like, is it like right now? Do you think it's like mature enough to, like, do what you guys want, or are we still too like early in decentralized storage?
Yeah, we're pretty early. I think we use it for the hackathon, and it did actually we use it through Textile, but it did crash. But but that's because this is much earlier than I ever thought it was before I entered into it, coming from a very traditional world. But that's exciting in itself, because it means that, you know, if we have the right intentions, that are positive intentions, that we can actually have something that is hopefully better than what exists already. But that's going to take a lot of sort of humility as well, in actually realizing that we could build something that's worse than what we already have. So I think it's really great that people are so excited about Web3. I think it's amazing, you know. But that's exactly what happened before with the birth of the internet, is people were really excited, thought they were going to build the next thing that was going to solve humanity and solve world hunger and all this kind of thing. But to think that we can solve something like that overnight is, I would think, very naive. So I think that through this, it's only through doing it slowly and with intention that we can build something that's better. But yeah, going back to like the technical aspects of data storage. For me personally, I think it's, you know, going back to what I read in the FT or in the news a couple of weeks ago about the NHS data getting taken from GP surgeries. So I'm in the UK, so NHS data getting taken from GP surgeries and put into a massive data lake by NHS Digital. And as any British person knows, and probably people everywhere, the NHS Digital are not very good at what they do. So chances are this data is not going to be, or they told us it's not going to be anonymized, and it's going to be shared with third parties. And these third parties could be anyone from like insurance companies to like pharmaceutical companies, and that is really scary. That means that this data, as you said, Shady, about data being, you know, in the US, anyone can have access to it. This is medical data. This is like, they could see if you're predisposed to have Alzheimer's or predisposed to have cancer, or, you know, and then just decide that they don't want to insure you because of that, or they want to give you maybe, you know, you have no idea if like a bad actor comes in and you get less social credits because, you know, your genes aren't great for society, so we don't want you to. We're getting onto a very, very fragile surface here. And I think that's why decentralized data is even more important than anything decentralized. I guess decentralized money is the basis of it, but data to me is money. So I think decentralized data is even more important, and having sovereignty over your own data. And then getting on to the data wallet, so what we built for the hackathon. So this enables you as a user to upload your data. It's very much a proof of concept, by the way. So if you want to, you know, if you have any ideas about this, but anyway. So you as a user, so whether you're a researcher or a research participant, can take your data set. So this means like BIDS data, which is brain imaging. I forgot. It's a neuroscience data. Shady, do you want to step in? What is BIDS data again?
I'll save you. Brain imaging data set specification.
Thank you. So
data set structure specification.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's a universal neuroscience data structure. So you can get this, upload this, and it's in your own bucket. So on Techstyle, it's a bit like an S3 bucket on Amazon. Like you have your own bucket per user. And in the future, this will be done through your individual identifier. But for the proof of concept, it was done through MetaMask, which has issues within itself. But anyway, so then you have your own data, and then the idea is you can then permission that data to where you want. So you can say like, oh, I want to participate in cancer studies, or I want to participate in this study. Or as a researcher, you can say, I want my research data to also be available to these sorts of studies. You can also make that data public. So you can put it on we also have like a ability to make that data completely public. And the idea is then when you do this, then you get rewarded for that. So get rewarded, incentivized to share that data. But it essentially is giving you self-sovereignty over your data, which is something that does not exist. So that's really cool. And yeah.
Do you have, well, is it gonna take like a bit for you to like pull it up and like share your screen, or like just walk us through it, or I don't know,
Uh,
a live demo?
Let me just check because I'm actually
Okay.
giving sex.
But yeah, I
Because it's
could give you
completely.
some. I could
There's
show
a
you some
video.
people
Yes,
who would
there's a
like
video.
to. There's a video. Okay.
There's a video. I'd recommend watching that because of just everything's closed on this laptop, so it would take me a little bit of time to get that.
I think I do have a console that's running locally. I can give it a quick shot. Yeah.
Yeah, give it a shot. Everything is closed on this laptop. I actually have no idea where it is.
Because we love doing live stuff. I think the last time we did a live data set.
Publish
right
on Polygon, yes. Yeah.
Oh,
The last time was a few episodes ago, but yeah.
Okay, let me check then.
But actually, this concept that you're using, I mean, this would also be something that we could use in data union, for example. I mean, right now, I'm skipping all of this hard stuff about the data storage. So the people just upload the stuff to our server. But in theory, I mean, they could also have such a data wallet, right? But then we also want to do annotations and so on, and like, and verifications on the data, so that we actually assign quality properties to the data. So is this also something that you guys were thinking about? I mean, like, I can put a lot of data, like in my wallet, but who knows how good the data is or something like this.
Yeah, we also wanted to do that. So doing the what do you call it? We also wanted to do some verification on to make sure it's in the correct format, especially so bits data comes and you get the metadata, and that's all in JSON format. So the idea was to like present the metadata, and then also have ability for like tagging and stuff. And yeah, but no, I think verification is a really important aspect of uploading data and putting it and getting rewarded for that.
Yeah, I mean, the people also probably should get something, right, for doing that. And there I was thinking about, like you kind of, okay, I have the data, it's mine data. Then the other people do some service for me by basically enhancing it, by verifying and tagging stuff. And then, I mean, we could say it's an NFT, right? So you get a share, they get a share. Okay, in the end, it's not only mine anymore, but it belongs to all of us together. And then when we start selling it, then like proportionally, according to how much the people were contributing to it, you get a certain share of it. So then the original creator or owner, they don't get 100%. They maybe only get like 40% or 30%, like, because everybody else was contributing. And then if you have to pay for storage and then something else, then you can also factor all of this in. And in the end, you can get a very transparent model of where all the shares go to. And then in the end, the people who build the software do something, they can also maybe get a small amount. And then suddenly all of this kind of can work, like it can run and run and run and scale up, because everybody's taken care of, and everybody's happy to contribute and get something out of it.
I have it up and running. Does anyone want to watch?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want to do the demo now? Okay.
Have you got it up as well? You can do it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you guys could see my screen or not.
I just I don't know if you were ready or not. I just have to add it to the stream. Okay. Whoever.
Go ahead. Alex.
Okay, I'll do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Share screen.
Here we go again. Another live demo here on the Sailors Lounge podcast.
You saw it here first, people.
Yeah.
It's not completely there yet. Have you got it? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, it should be up. Let me.
Yours is. I think you have a more recent. I haven't pulled recently either, so I'm glad.
This is actually a branch. This was a demo. We didn't quite get it into the main branch yet. I need to. Since we finished the hackathon, it's been a bit busy. But yeah, anyway. So I'll reload it. I'll show you how that looks. So sign into MetaMask. Then you can see fetching index, fetching file list. So this is just grabbing it all from Textile. This is my actual wallet, and as you can see, metadata hasn't been pulled exactly correctly yet, but that's why all of these exist, because I've uploaded 1, 2, 3, 4 data
like
things.
dummy data sets. Yeah.
Yeah, dummy data sets. So what I would do is I'd go like click and drag, and I could just like upload something, and then I could do like demo authors is me, and times would be like data. And then submit that, and then this pushes the data to my S3 bucket. I say S3, it's not an S3 bucket. I'm just so used to web. My bucket on file on textile. And that might take a little bit. And this is what I mean by it's not quite there yet. It's a little bit slow. It's all like a little bit slow. So I think it would be interesting if we grow out.
How large is the demo data that you're using? How many megabytes?
There. And then you get, this is for the demo, but then you get, our idea is to get a POAP, so to get a scientific kudos almost. So we use POAP, which I think is a really great company, in order to get scientific kudos for uploading data to push forward open science. So yeah, that's that, and then close that, and yeah.
You could also reward with a data token if you want,
or a data token, which would be really good as well.
I mean, we give out data tokens because I mean, but then kind of the data also belongs to this data set. So then in this case, it's in your bucket. So I mean, it's not necessarily immediately part of a larger data set, right? It's like your own one. So maybe you should have your own data token.
Yeah,
everybody has their own data token or something.
I think tokens are a really good idea, but I think something non-fungible is also really good because it's sort of, as we spoke about it in a hackathon, in science there's this, I forgot the word, but like this sort of like momentum, and if you could have like monthly or whatever it is, you know, you could get something rather than just getting a new token, which sort of is the same thing as the last token. If you could have something like a PERP, even somebody commented, they said they love PERPs. I think something like that is almost like a badge of honor, is actually pretty cool. Like, I think that's sort of, it's quite sciencey in a way, because when you go to like conferences and stuff, you get badges to say you've been to a conference. It's like an electronic badge of honor, which I think is a really good use case for this particular product.
You can get both. I mean, there's no ways of stopping you to give people more than one thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's
up to you.
Yeah. I think the solution is going to be a combination of two in terms of when we have a successful functioning sustainable community. One really interesting consideration though that I try to keep in mind as we're building out different concepts and iterating, and really excited to check out some of the token engineering material. I know that you just came back from a workshop recently. And I would love to hear more about that. Just my one thought was, so on Ethereum, when you deploy something, you can't take it back, right? So that's why it's a decentralized, autonomous organization, because it's a smart contract that's going to be running in perpetuity. It's going to have copies that are running. It's just like Yam Finance when they had their bug last year. It wrecked their whole thing. They locked up millions and millions and millions of dollars because of the smart contract bug. And so that's definitely a double-edged sword. Definitely a lot of dangers associated there. But it's also a really powerful method for ensuring exclusivity or ensuring verifiability. So in science, in neuroscience specifically, when we create these verified data sets, these BIDS compatible data sets, you immediately abstract away a bunch of other problems associated with your confidence in the data and the subsequent results you can generate, which is, do I have to worry about this data actually belonging to the right person, or having the right number of runs, or are the parameters for this image sequence for participant 5 the same as participant 1, or did the scanning tech accidentally smooth it additionally? And so because in the BIDS format, all of the metadata is kept as a sidecar, as a JSON sidecar to the data, you can make sure that the header information in the image also matches what the actual experimental specification should be. So you have this, once it runs through the bids validator, you have this verifiable object, this data object. And that is something that you can then tokenize and then provide liquidity for people to pull out. And the liquidity could be priced based off of the going rates for storage or computation time. And you could build in a fee within the pool so that the liquidity gets routed back to the pool, very much like you guys are doing for data union. And so, where does the non-fungible aspect come in, right? So for data, there is a fungibility to it because you might need to copy data or use data, in different instances. I think the power there is where individuals can control the permissions of which data sets gets included in the overall larger data set. And so a data set might have 100 participants and 5 of them decide they don't want to participate at any time, and that could be controlled in real time. And having, I think, the opportunity for participants to use their data in multiple data pools. So one really key missing aspect that we're hoping to flesh out in more detail on our Open Science Bay platform as we work it out is including an additional role. So we have our data provider, we have our data consumer, and then I think that we also need a data set curator to kind of get at the issues you're talking about, quality, Robin. So data set curators are individuals who go through other data sets made available for public use by participants, for research use by participants, and assembling those data sets with some expertise that they have. Say that they're a neuroimager and they know what a good demographically representative sample should look like for a particular set of data. And when you have data set curators, a research participant might contribute to multiple data set curators. And in that case, you could have an NFT that represents each of those liquidity pools and the ownership of those liquidity pools so that they can manage those permissions for each of those. And so that's kind of, thinking about the architecture of a data commons where we have the participant with ultimate sovereignty over what gets used in a pool or not. And then you have this kind of middle ground of intermediaries that put the data sets together, whether they're scientists or curators, and then publishing them out for other consumption by other. And then, thinking about the incentive structures, what about if it's a POAP or other types of merit or badges that provide you access to the services that could be offered, whether it's free computation time or unlimited access to public commons data, or, because we want to make things available and accessible and free for anyone to use, but we also want to have a barrier or a filter for bad actors, right, who might abuse the system. And so I mean, one long-term incentive that might be interesting for the participants might be that, like the data is going to be used for something, for studies. There's going to be an outcome of that. So in the sense that with our images, we're doing machine learning, computer vision algorithms. I mean, but your neural images, they're also going this data is going to lead to something. So if you then say, okay, now because you participated, you gave your data, you're going to get a share again of this final result, like of the scientific end product, like it might not work out in many cases, like there's hypotheses that might fail, but you can then decide you want to have your data participate in something. And if it succeeds, then you get a share of that. And then if this gets then used again, you will get some reward for that, and then it's a very long-term incentive, like that's what I'm also telling the people with our image data set, like in the long term, you will always get something, like not just for contributing the data, but also what it's going to be used for. And then, then you're getting somewhere, because like really just the data itself, how many times is it going to be used? But if it's really used for something successful, then you kind of hit the jackpot, right? And then that's something that it's digitally verifiable that it was you that participated. You can get something from that forever, and that it's still a lot of value created, But you're kind of taking a leap of faith a bit, like because you're participating without exactly knowing that this is going to work out or not. But I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, the data you can, as long as you have it, it's not so painful to share it for more and more things. Even as you say, you can decide what to use it for. And then I think it becomes really, really powerful. And then also, like, let's say, even if we take AI,
if you have it once and it's good, you can use it for a long time, you know, and it kind of only generates value. But normally this value is captured by a large corporation, and then suddenly it's captured by like an individual, and that's like, I think, very powerful mechanism. And that the same, like I think in your science, in the science world, it's the same. I think there's a lot of parallels here between like this machine learning stuff I'm doing and where you want to go. I mean, I'm skipping a lot of the details that you guys are figuring out right now. Maybe I can help you out in the long run with some of the other things. I'm focusing more on other things. So yeah, everybody cut some corners somewhere, you know, to get to some results.
And I think that's the beauty of it, is that there is this sort of collaboration aspect to Web3 that doesn't really exist in the Silicon Valley sort of dog eats dog sort of, I don't even know if that's the correct phrase, sort of world. I think it's lovely, the collaboration of it. So yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, I think what's different here, I was just gonna say really quick, is that we're building public tools, right, that could be used to generate value. So we're going to build the hammers, the saws, the benches, all that good stuff. All you got to do is pick up a tool, and you could contribute, and the idea is that you could make a living off of that, right? You can engineer value in these profit-sharing communities, and that really blows people's minds away. That, oh, how do you make money off of open source? What are you going to do? Courses? Are you going to teach people? So no, like just like DeFi made money open source, we can build on that. I think that's like a key concept that some people don't really immediately capture.
It's very difficult to understand because it's so counterintuitive. Yeah.
I think I honestly think it's because the way we understand value is is very removed from reality. We're creating value rather than taking value or placing value. It's value creation versus value rehoming.
Value takeaway.
Value takeaway.
But I think these are the important points, where then the blockchain, like the blockchain technology or like the Web3 really becomes something, like just not like just money or making more money or like not a nice sum game anymore, but you start creating something that becomes more and more and more on its own, and there's value being created, not just the nice sum game. So it's more than that, and that's I think we're on the verge of all of this, and yeah, that's then, and it will take us, I think, some years until the people really will understand that something like this is even possible, because it's not in the traditional world, it's not really something that people are striving for. Everybody just tries to take for themselves, but then there's so much why you can just take a little bit, and it's far enough for yourself. You can give so much to the other people, and that's no problem. And like these powerful mechanisms, I think I'm really looking forward to this. And I think, yeah, Ocean and this data angle really makes gives it a big push. Yeah.
I guess so for me as a person, I've always been like a collaborative, personality. Like I've always wanted people to join in on what I'm doing, or I want to be a part of, something that other people are doing. And it's crazy to see that like just being in like OceanDAO itself, we really like all these projects are all just interlinked with everyone. I mean, Robin here, Data Union app, is just eating everyone's projects, trying to get everybody to collaborate with him. He's like, "Oh, come join DU, come join DU."
How can you resist, though? You can't resist, Robin.
Right?
No. I mean, they don't have to join me. I can join everybody else too. It's no problem for me.
Yeah,
I don't mind. Also jump on everybody's back. It's go side by side. It's all right. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so, I mean, we like 1.5 hours deep. What do you guys think? I mean, it was really, really great conversation. Do you think we should make a final round, like say something at the end, or what do you think, Jim?
Yeah. Do you guys have any last remarks? What's the next step now that we've closed the what is this, DAO 6?
6.
Yeah, DAO 6. You guys were in let's see, let me check my Notion. Mission. It was a Mission Coral, yeah. Or I think you guys finished 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 5th in the round. Yeah.
Thanks everybody for your support.
Yeah. So I think you guys finished 5th in the voting round. So yeah, what's gonna be next for Opscentia?
Yeah, I'll just kind of run out our immediate go-to plan. So we have our summer projects already lined up, looking at things like building an identity index using IDX with an integration with the BIDS format, really building out the functionality of the data wallet so that we do have these, where this data wallet is this portal to Web3 that's very user intuitive and friendly. And we also are working so there's 2 projects, one kind of focusing on identity and honing that lab to marketplace workflow. Like, how do you go from consenting a participant to publishing a data set? And so identity and identity and managed permissions and deploying managing permissions of data deployed to decentralized storage is a really important part of that. Another component that we're working on in parallel is ensuring that along every step of the way that data provenance is maintained and annotated and stored. So there's a really great utility. I highly recommend it. I opened up an issue on the Ocean Marketplace actually requesting that it be integrated or at least thought about in terms of the overall roadmap, and that's DataLad. DataLad is a wrapper for Git, but also includes Git Annex. So you can version binary files, and you can set up data sets that have pointers to multiple remotes. And you can actually execute run commands, right? So that capture all of the details of the code, or if you're using a Docker container, preferably the environment, and you can replicate the exact conditions for generating the data set. So what you can end up with is this verifiable history or provenance of how a data set was created. And that's the holy grail for reproducibility, where you open up a research project, you read the introduction, okay, that's great, but how do I actually do that and make sure that I execute every step along the way? So that's our second project. We're also hard at work looking at, we've assembled a list of almost 800 neurotech labs and companies, and we want to identify exactly which of these, what are their needs? What are the hidden barriers to getting your data out there? Is it a data storage issue? Is it an education issue? Is it a cultural issue? Or maybe even more importantly, and critically, maybe it's a regulatory issue. And so how do we remain adaptable and build out a suite of tools that services the needs of data scientists and scientists in general to be able to go from the lab to the marketplace? And that'll be the focus of our activities this summer. And then we'll do a check-in, and we'll see, exactly what our next steps are after that. Once we've set out this prototype of the DeSci stack running on a fork of the Ocean Marketplace, and an open data science wallet that research participants could open up and use to control their data. So that's what we're working on.
Cool. Sounds like super exciting stuff. And then more on the data wallet too, I think, right? You guys will start getting that out. And then so I'm gonna post the link for everybody to, if you guys want to follow them on Twitter, it's twitter.com/Opscentia. And Shady, I think I'm saying it right now. I've and then I gotta know, because I think the first time when we did the first sponsor, I was stumbling on my words.
Oh, I'd stumble on my words all
Yeah.
the time. I think I made a mistake using Latin as a company name.
Right.
That's very, it fits to the medical theme, that's all right, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Germany, the people learn Latin in school so they can prepare for their medical studies, That's I also had it, but yeah, I didn't go into the medical direction.
I studied one year of Latin. I was really bad at it. My grandma was actually a Latin teacher.
Oh, wow. At least she prepared you for Opscentia.
It's so beautiful when you say it, Jim. I think we need to get you on record so that we can play your playback, your voice.
Oh yeah, as a jingle. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna close this out. Oh, and then let's see. Anything else? So I think I have some. Okay, so we're okay. Just I guess just an alpha leak for those like viewing right now. Probably we're trying to get Bruce on the next podcast, on the next episode. Hopefully the next one, but I don't know if yeah, things are kind of.
As an additional alpha to this alpha,
Oh,
I kind of got a confirmation while we were in the stream. So I have to coordinate with Monica, but let's see.
Oh,
looks
okay.
very good.
Oh wow, okay, super alpha. But yeah, just a alpha stream. So if things go that way, then we'll have the Mr. Legendary Bruce Pond on the Sailors Lounge.
But my last words would be that I hope this was not the last episode with you guys. Yeah, and maybe next time Sarah will also join us. I think there's so much overlap between all the projects. I mean, I'm trying to bring everybody to collaborate, and I think sooner or later this will all happen, and then we will have the streams where we will talk about what we worked together on. Like what was the outcome of the collaborations, and that I'm also looking very much forward to that.
Oh wait, I was just gonna say, Sarah, as in the one that does the drawings, right, Robin? Or
No. Sarah from Opscentia. So
okay. There's so many Sarah. I thought
there's only three Sarahs so far I know in the
three Sarahs. Okay, there's one that works. Okay, there's one that's Ocean, and then there's also one that's like working with the data union and also other projects, right? That does. She's also an ambassador with us. Also, yes. Okay, what were you gonna say?
The third one. Another one.
Oh yeah, now a third one.
we're all gonna have to adopt pseudonyms on now, because like at least you can log in and be like, this username is already taken.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, you have to register your .eth domain, and then you can connect it to your wallet, and then it becomes your new decentralized identity and stuff. The gas cost is really low right now. This is your chance.
Yeah,
it's insane. But yeah, Robin, I think that's a great idea. And so with Opscentia, we're building a DAO, Opscentia DAO, and right now we have our weekly DAO hall meetings. There's actually biweekly DAO hall meetings. There's one actually coming up this afternoon. It's just kind of going to be us talking about updates and figuring out our next steps. But the idea is to have that open to the public, and anyone who wants to join, you just pop into our Discord if you have any proposals or ideas for collaboration, or just wants to say hello. Otherwise, I think just like working asynchronously and popping into different Discord groups. And,
no invitation accepted. I will join as soon as it's open.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Shady, for being here. Thank you, Alex. It was a great, very pleasurable talk about decentralizing the world for good. And really thank you for really grateful for you guys to be our first sponsor. I know we did have a request to have a sponsor for some merch stuff, but I had to decline that because we weren't ready yet. But I'm really glad you guys are our first sponsor. I'm so grateful for that. So yeah, this concludes another episode of the Sailors Lounge. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And let's sail away.
Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.